Have you ever faced a moment where you knew you had to take a stand, even if it meant risking everything? Esther, a young queen in a foreign land, found herself at this exact crossroad. Faced with the annihilation of her people, she made a choice that would define her legacy. She acted with courage, driven by faith, and risked her life to save her people. Her story shows us that when we act according to our beliefs, we can create change that goes far beyond ourselves. Join us as we uncover how Esther's courageous choice can inspire each of us to live boldly and make a difference. Esther was a young Jewish woman living in the Persian Empire, a vast and powerful kingdom that stretched across multiple regions and cultures. After the fall of Jerusalem and the exile of the Jewish people, many had settled in foreign lands, including Persia. Esther's parents had passed away, and she was raised by her cousin Mordecai, a man of deep faith and loyalty to the Jewish community. Mordecai's guidance helped shape Esther's character, instilling in her a strong sense of identity, faith, and responsibility. Esther's path to becoming queen was unexpected. When Queen Vashti was removed from her position for refusing to obey the king's command, a search began for a new queen. Young women from across the empire were brought to the palace, and Esther, renowned for her beauty and grace, was among them. Mordecai advised her to keep her Jewish identity a secret, understanding that in a foreign court, her heritage could be a source of vulnerability. Esther followed his advice, concealing her origins, even as she gained favor with the king and those around her. Eventually, she was chosen as queen, an honor that placed her in a position of influence, but also deep isolation. As queen, Esther lived a life of privilege within the palace walls, but her role came with its own challenges. Despite her royal status, she remained separated from her people, unable to openly express her faith or fully embrace her Jewish identity. Her relationship with King Xerxes, the powerful and unpredictable ruler of Persia, was one marked by formality and distance. In Persian society, approaching the king without a summons could result in death, a rule that even the queen had to obey. Esther's life at court, therefore, was one of caution and restraint, as she navigated the complexities of her position and the precarious balance between privilege and danger. Esther's isolation from her people became even more pronounced with the rise of Haman, a high-ranking official in the Persian court. Haman harbored deep hatred toward the Jewish people, particularly Mordecai, who had refused to bow down to him. Fueled by this resentment, Haman devised a plan to exterminate all Jews within the empire, securing the king's approval for his deadly decree. This decree set a specific date on which the Jews would be annihilated, creating an atmosphere of fear and despair among the Jewish community. Esther, though safely within the palace, would not be immune to the consequences of this decree if her Jewish heritage were discovered. It was in this context that Esther found herself facing an unimaginable choice. Mordecai, upon learning of Haman's plan, sent word to Esther, urging her to intervene on behalf of her people. "Who knows," he told her, "but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." His words highlighted the possibility that Esther's rise to queenship was no mere coincidence, but rather a part of a divine plan. Esther was in a unique position to influence the king, but doing so would require her to reveal her identity and risk her life. Understanding the world in which Esther lived, the foreignness of her position, the isolation she endured, and the danger posed by Haman's decree brings her courage into sharper focus. Her decision was not simply about bravery, it was about confronting the full weight of her identity and standing for her people in a moment of extreme vulnerability. This background sets the stage for the pivotal choice Esther would make, showing that her courage was rooted in both her faith and her sense of responsibility to her people. With Esther established as queen, the true test of her faith and courage began when a threat emerged that endangered her entire people. Haman, a high-ranking official in King Xerxes' court, had gained significant power within the Persian Empire. Known for his pride and arrogance, Haman expected all subjects of the empire to bow down before him as a sign of respect. However, Mordecai, Esther's cousin and adoptive father, refused to bow to Haman, an act that infuriated him. Mordecai's refusal wasn't just a matter of rebellion, it was rooted in his Jewish faith, which taught him to honor only God in such a manner. This act of defiance enraged Haman, who saw Mordecai's refusal as an affront to his authority. Instead of addressing the issue directly with Mordecai, Haman conceived a plan to exact revenge on a much larger scale. He sought not only to punish Mordecai, but to destroy all Jews within the empire. Fueled by his anger and hatred, Haman approached King Xerxes with a proposal. He described the Jewish people as a threat to the unity of the empire, claiming they followed laws different from those of the king and posed a risk to societal order. Manipulating the king's authority, Haman convinced Xerxes to issue a decree calling for the complete extermination of the Jewish people across the empire. With the king's approval, Haman set a specific date for the massacre, giving the Jewish community a limited amount of time before their lives were to be taken. The news of the decree spread rapidly, creating widespread fear and despair among the Jews. They found themselves powerless, facing a death sentence with no immediate means of defense. This decree was not just an attack on individuals, it was an assault on an entire community's identity, culture, and faith. The gravity of Haman's decree created an environment of hopelessness among the Jews, who could do little but mourn and pray for deliverance. Upon hearing of the decree, Mordecai took immediate action. He put on sackcloth and ashes, a traditional sign of mourning, and went to the palace gates, where he wailed and wept openly. His outward display of grief served both as a personal expression of despair and as a public call for attention, hoping that Esther would recognize the severity of the situation. Despite his lowly position outside the palace, Mordecai's commitment to his people was unshakable. He knew that Esther, as queen, held a unique position of influence, and he hoped she would intervene. When word of Mordecai's mourning reached Esther, she was initially unaware of the specific details surrounding the decree. She sent a messenger to inquire about his distress, and in response, Mordecai explained the situation, urging her to go before the king and plead for the lives of her people. However, Esther knew the danger of such an act. Approaching the king without an invitation was punishable by death, and the only exception was if the king extended his golden scepter to spare the person's life. Esther was painfully aware of the risks involved in revealing her identity and intervening on behalf of the Jews. Yet Mordecai's message to her was powerful and unwavering. "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Mordecai's words resonated deeply with Esther. They reminded her of her unique position and suggested that perhaps her rise to queen was part of a greater purpose, one that extended beyond her personal safety or comfort. His message highlighted the idea that, as difficult and dangerous as her situation was, she had been placed in her role with the potential to save her people. Mordecai's appeal emphasized that her position as queen was not merely a coincidence, but possibly a divine plan. The urgency of the situation demanded that Esther make a decision. She could choose to remain silent, hiding her identity and preserving her life, or she could risk everything and stand up for her people. Her choice was not just about bravery. It was about aligning her actions with her faith, stepping into the unknown with the belief that her position had meaning beyond herself. The threat was real, and the cost of inaction was unimaginable. Her decision would not only determine her own fate, but also the fate of countless lives. It was in this moment that Esther's journey transformed from one of survival to one of purpose. This chapter of Esther's story presents a critical turning point, revealing the depth of her faith and the strength required to face such overwhelming odds. Her resolve to stand with her people despite the risks highlights a powerful truth. Sometimes faith calls us to step out from the safety of our circumstances and into the uncertainty of action. In the next chapter, we'll see how Esther prepares for this dangerous encounter with the king, and how she draws upon her faith and courage to take the first steps towards saving her people. The choice before Esther was monumental. She could stay silent, concealing her Jewish identity and preserving her own safety, or she could reveal herself, risking her life to plead for the survival of her people. This decision was not simply a test of bravery, it was a test of faith, an opportunity for Esther to act in alignment with her convictions. Knowing the dangers involved, Esther made a courageous choice. She resolved to go before the king, despite the risks, choosing to embrace the potential purpose that Mordecai had highlighted, that she had been made queen for such a time as this. Before taking action, however, Esther sought strength and guidance in her faith. She instructed Mordecai to gather all the Jews in the city to fast for 3 days on her behalf. Esther, along with her maidservants, would do the same. This period of fasting was more than a ritual. It was an expression of complete dependence on God. Esther knew that the task before her required divine intervention, and by fasting, she was acknowledging her reliance on a higher power to give her the courage, wisdom, and favor she would need. This time of fasting was a significant preparation, both spiritually and mentally, strengthening her resolve to face the uncertain path ahead. Esther's decision to fast and pray is a powerful reminder of the importance of preparation before facing major challenges. Rather than rushing into action out of fear or impulse, she took a step back to connect with her faith and seek clarity. This preparation was a source of inner strength, helping her to enter the king's court with a calm and focused heart. In choosing to prepare herself spiritually, Esther demonstrated that her courage was not rooted in self-confidence, but in her trust in God. This reliance on her faith became the foundation for the courageous act she was about to undertake. After 3 days of fasting, Esther prepared herself to appear before King Xerxes. The rules of the Persian court were clear. Approaching the king without a summons was punishable by death, unless the king extended his golden scepter as a sign of mercy. This law applied to everyone, including the queen, which meant Esther's life was truly at risk. As she dressed in her royal attire and approached the throne room, she was acutely aware of the danger she faced. The silence in the court as she entered must have been tense, with all eyes watching to see whether the king would welcome her or condemn her. In that critical moment, Esther's courage shone brightly. She had no guarantee of success, no certainty that the king would grant her audience, yet she walked forward, driven by her faith and love for her people. When Xerxes saw her, he extended his golden scepter, signaling his favor. This simple gesture marked the first victory in Esther's journey to save her people. Her act of faith had been rewarded, and she was now able to make her request known. However, Esther did not immediately plead for her people's lives. Instead, she displayed remarkable patience and wisdom, inviting the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. By inviting them to a banquet, Esther strategically created an environment where she could speak more openly and personally with the king. This approach demonstrated her prudence and discernment, qualities that underscored her courage. Rather than rushing into her plea, she took her time, carefully setting the stage for her request. Esther's decision to proceed thoughtfully, even after being granted an audience, reveals the depth of her strength and wisdom. She knew that timing and diplomacy were essential to ensure that her message would be received favorably. In this phase of Esther's story, we see the profound interplay of faith and courage. Her reliance on God, combined with her willingness to act despite her fears, allowed her to approach an impossible situation with grace and composure. Esther's example shows that true courage is not about acting without fear, but about moving forward in spite of it. Her actions remind us that faith can be a powerful motivator, enabling us to face challenges that seem insurmountable. After days of preparation and fasting, Esther was finally ready to face the king. Her heart must have been pounding as she approached the throne, knowing that her life and the fate of her people hung in the balance. However, with remarkable composure, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. By choosing to host a banquet rather than immediately revealing her request, Esther demonstrated profound wisdom. She understood that timing was crucial and that building trust and rapport with the king would increase the likelihood that her words would be heard and accepted. At the first banquet, the king asked Esther what she desired, promising to grant her request, even if it were up to half the kingdom. Yet, rather than rushing to present her plea, Esther invited the king and Haman to a second banquet the following day. This move was both strategic and bold, giving Esther additional time to strengthen her position. Her patience and caution reflect a deep understanding of both the king's temperament and the intricacies of court politics. By carefully pacing her requests, Esther set the stage to address her plea in a way that would resonate powerfully. The second banquet was the moment Esther had been waiting for. With both the king and Haman present, she finally revealed her identity and the impending threat to her people. In a courageous and vulnerable moment, she disclosed that she, too, was Jewish, and that Haman's decree not only endangered her people, but also her own life. "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request." Esther's words were direct and heartfelt, appealing not only to the king's authority, but to his sense of justice and compassion. Her revelation took the king by surprise. He hadn't known of Esther's heritage, nor did he realize that his trusted advisor, Haman, had orchestrated a plot against the queen's people. The weight of Esther's words was powerful, exposing Haman's deceit and betrayal. In that moment, Esther's courage and careful approach paid off. She had laid bare the reality of the situation, confronting Haman's evil plans and putting the king in a position where he could no longer ignore the gravity of the decree. Her appeal to the king was both personal and political, touching him as both a ruler and as her husband. Furious at Haman's treachery, the king left the banquet hall to process the situation. When he returned, he found Haman pleading for his life at Esther's feet, an action that further sealed Haman's fate. Misinterpreting Haman's desperation as an attempt to assault the queen, the king ordered Haman's execution on the very gallows that Haman had built for Mordecai. Esther's courage and faith had not only exposed the wickedness of Haman's plot, but had also ensured justice for her people. This encounter showcases Esther's strength and wisdom in the face of overwhelming adversity. Her approach demonstrates that courage isn't always loud or forceful. Sometimes it is quiet, measured, and intentional. By choosing the right moment to reveal her request, and by framing her plea in a way that resonated with the king, Esther was able to secure not only her life, but also the survival of her people. Her bravery in the king's presence was a testament to the power of faith in action. Esther's courage and strategic approach ultimately saved her people from annihilation. Her intervention led to a swift reversal of fate for the Jewish people within the Persian Empire. After Haman's execution, the king issued a new decree, granting the Jews permission to defend themselves against any attackers on the designated day of the original massacre. This decree empowered the Jewish community, turning a moment of impending despair into one of hope and resilience. Esther's bravery had created an opportunity for her people, not only to survive, but to thrive. The impact of Esther's actions extended far beyond the immediate rescue of her people. Her decision to confront the king and reveal her identity had given the Jewish community a renewed sense of identity and strength. By taking a stand, Esther had shown them that even in a foreign land, their faith and courage could make a difference. Her example inspired generations to come, illustrating that true leadership involves both wisdom and sacrifice. The celebration of this victory became the Jewish holiday of Purim, commemorating the survival of the Jewish people and honoring the faith and bravery of Queen Esther. The festival of Purim is celebrated to this day, serving as a reminder of the transformative power of courage and faith. On Purim, the Jewish community reads the story of Esther, recounting her journey from an unknown young woman to a revered queen and protector of her people. This celebration is filled with joy and gratitude, not only for the survival of the Jewish people, but also for the values of resilience and faith that Esther's story embodies. Her legacy is one of empowerment, reminding people that courage rooted in faith can overcome even the greatest of challenges. Esther's victory also carried personal significance for her. By choosing to reveal her Jewish heritage, she embraced her identity in a way that she had not been able to do before. Her role as queen had required her to hide an essential part of who she was, but her courageous choice to stand with her people allowed her to fully own her faith and heritage. This act of self-acceptance became a key part of her legacy, showing that true strength comes not from hiding who we are, but from standing proudly and openly in our beliefs. Esther's story leaves us with a profound lesson. One person's courage can inspire an entire community. Her actions demonstrate that when we act in alignment with our convictions, we have the power to bring about positive change that extends far beyond ourselves. Esther's faith-driven courage not only saved her people, but also left a legacy of strength, resilience, and hope that continues to inspire to this day. For people of faith, her story serves as a powerful reminder that sometimes we are placed in specific situations for a purpose greater than ourselves, and when we embrace that purpose, we can create lasting impact. The story of Esther is more than an ancient tale. It holds timeless lessons that resonate deeply with our lives today. Her journey teaches us about the courage to stand up for what we believe in, the importance of faith in the face of uncertainty, and the power of purpose in shaping our decisions. As we reflect on her story, we find that the principles that guided Esther, courage, faith, and conviction, are equally relevant to the challenges we face in our own lives. One of the most powerful lessons we can take from Esther is the idea that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. When faced with the decree that threatened her people, Esther felt the weight of fear. She knew the risks involved in approaching the king, but her sense of duty outweighed her personal safety. In our own lives, we may face moments when we're called to act despite our fears, whether it's standing up for our beliefs, defending others, or making difficult choices in our careers or relationships. Esther's story reminds us that courage often involves stepping forward when we feel the least prepared. Her example inspires us to rise above fear and act with conviction, knowing that true courage lies in taking action, even when we feel vulnerable. Another vital lesson from Esther's story is the importance of faith. Throughout her journey, Esther relied on her faith to guide her. Before approaching the king, she fasted and prayed, seeking strength and clarity. This period of preparation was essential, reminding us that sometimes we need to pause and seek guidance before making significant decisions. Esther's faith gave her the courage to act, and it grounded her in a sense of purpose. In modern life, where we often feel pressured to act quickly, Esther's example teaches us the value of slowing down and reconnecting with our beliefs. Her faith-driven courage encourages us to seek purpose and meaning in our actions, allowing us to act with integrity and intention. Esther's story also highlights the impact of one person's actions on a community. Her choice to reveal her identity and plead for her people saved an entire population from destruction. In today's world, we may feel that our individual actions don't make much difference. Yet Esther's story reminds us that even one voice, when aligned with a greater purpose, can create ripples that impact many. We are each capable of making a positive difference in our communities, workplaces, and families. Whether it's through small acts of kindness, standing up for what is right, or encouraging those around us, our actions have the potential to inspire and uplift others. Esther's story challenges us to recognize the influence we have and to use it for good. Moreover, Esther's journey teaches us about embracing our identity and purpose. For much of her life, Esther had to conceal her Jewish heritage. However, when the time came to protect her people, she embraced her identity openly, finding strength in who she was. This act of self-acceptance allowed her to fulfill her role with authenticity and integrity. In our own lives, we may feel pressure to conform or hide certain aspects of ourselves, but Esther's story encourages us to embrace who we are fully. When we stand confidently in our identity and values, we can approach challenges with a sense of purpose and strength. Lastly, Esther's story is a reminder of the importance of timing and wisdom. She didn't rush into action. Instead, she carefully prepared, invited the king and Haman to banquets, and waited for the right moment to reveal her request. This patience and discernment highlight the importance of timing in decision-making. Esther's example teaches us to approach challenges thoughtfully, understanding that sometimes waiting for the right moment can make all the difference. In a world that often demands immediate responses, Esther's story reminds us of the value of patience and careful planning. As we draw inspiration from Esther's journey, we're encouraged to look at our own lives and consider how her qualities, courage, faith, purpose, authenticity, and wisdom can shape the choices we make. Her story challenges us to reflect on our own beliefs and to act in ways that align with them. Just as Esther was called to her royal position for such a time as this, we too are placed in specific roles and circumstances that allow us to make a difference. Esther's legacy urges us to embrace these moments, knowing that our actions, rooted in faith and conviction, have the power to inspire change. The story of Esther is a timeless reminder of the impact one person's courage and faith can have on an entire community. Her choice to risk everything for her people is more than just an ancient tale. It's a call to action for each of us. Esther's journey challenges us to consider how we can live out our own convictions, stepping forward in faith even when the path is uncertain. Her example encourages us to act with intention, to make decisions that reflect our values, and to leave a lasting impact on those around us. As we reflect on Esther's story, we're invited to think about the ways we can create meaningful change in our own lives and communities. Are there situations where we feel called to stand up for our beliefs despite the challenges? Like Esther, each of us has a unique purpose and a chance to influence those around us. Her story is a powerful reminder that courage, when combined with faith, can shape our legacy in remarkable ways. If you're inspired by Esther's example and seek to deepen your own faith journey, consider exploring our ebook, 30 Habits for Drawing Closer to God. This guide offers practical steps and spiritual insights to help you cultivate habits that align your life with faith, purpose, and resilience. Just as Esther's courage was strengthened by her faith, these habits can empower you to face challenges with confidence, knowing that each step brings you closer to a life guided by God's wisdom and grace. Thank you for joining this exploration of Esther's story. If her example has inspired you, share this video and let others experience the strength that comes from living a life grounded in faith and purpose. Together, we can inspire courage and faith in our own such a time as this.